What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're covering some r/am I the butthole. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below, but if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. And with that being said, let's crack on with today's stories. Much love, guys. And our first story comes from Radar Blaze. Am I the arsehole for not wanting to participate in a living funeral for myself before I die this year? I have a genetic condition, and since the diagnosis many years ago, it's been all but certain I wouldn't pass of natural causes. I'm in my mid-60s, I've had a great life and I've done the big things I hope to do. I'm dealing just fine and need no sympathy. Doctors confirmed a few months ago that the end stages had set in and I began making the arrangements. My family very badly wants me to participate in a thing called a living funeral, or pre-funeral, where you gather on Zoom in this case, as though it is the actual funeral and give speeches and such, but the subject, me, is still alive to witness it all. They put a lot of thought and care into the planning of the funeral ceremony, and apparently seem to feel it would be such more therapeutic for them to do the main portion while I'm still there. Even still, I really just don't want to do that. It sounds awful, it sounds emotionally devastating, and like it would rip the peace I've made with everything I'm leaving behind right out from under me. My family is still pushing for this, especially because with the pandemic, it may be that a lot of people won't have seen me in a year when I pass. They want to take the opportunity to give a forum to people to say what they need to say to me and make peace with me and commune with me, and feel it won't be as nearly as cathartic if I'm not there as it would be to do while I'm still alive. I could really benefit from some insight here, because there's really a valid argument that I'll deal with the fallout of the pre-funeral for a few months at worst, and they'll deal with the emotional fallout of not having had one for years. Am I the arsehole for refusing to participate in this nice ceremony they're trying to put together for me? Wow, man, this sounds morbid as hell. If I was in that position, I wouldn't want that either. And I think the thing that would really get to me is trying to think of like my funeral coming up, a living funeral, and seeing my relatives crying and talking about me as if I'm not there anymore would absolutely tear me apart. I would hate to see my family devastated. But let's face it, as morbid as I think this is, the family clearly does, you know, have good intentions in the whole matter, you know. They just want to say goodbye to a loved one. Yeah, and it may be morbid to me and many other people as well, but at the same time, you know, they do just love this person too. But I can totally understand where OP is coming from in this situation. And although they did say no sympathy, much love to you, man, because I don't know how I would feel. I know with my own dad, I couldn't imagine doing something like this for him, saying, oh, let's set up a living funeral. I imagine he would be pretty devastated. And I know we all act in different ways regarding death, but yeah, I can imagine he would be pretty devastated about that. But Zachariah1988 says, not the arsehole, that's morbid as fuck. And I'm Waffle says, great name, it's literally your funeral in my opinion. You should be the one to decide what happens, not the arsehole. Mockingbird says, absolutely not the arsehole. That's really morbid and sounds depressing as fuck. If anything, I suggest compromising with having get-togethers on Zoom with different people where you can discuss how you're both doing, good memories, things like that. Keep it happy and whatnot. You shouldn't have to participate in anything you don't want to do that makes you feel uncomfortable. Them trying to force this on you is making it about their feelings, etc. And that's not fair to you. Check34 says, so these people want to hold an event to honour your death while you're still alive and offended that you won't let them have closure about your death. Wow, just wow. Not the arsehole, it has been my experience that funerals are more for the living than those who passed on, and boy is this proof of that. If they want closure, they can individually send you a letter or give you a call. Their behaviour regarding something you have expressed discomfort with is absolutely entitled and wrong. Seriously, there is nothing okay with a view of, hey, I know you're dying and that's terrible and all, but have you considered my feelings? Utterly bonkers. I am so sorry this is happening, OP. It might be best to point out that, by trying to honour your life, they are not honouring your wishes. Now, I'm going to turn it to you guys. How would you feel in this situation if you was put in OP's shoes and your family approached you and said they want a living funeral? How would you feel about that? Would you be bothered by it? Or would you just say like, yeah, sure, let's do this? Let me know in the comments how you feel. And our next story comes from No Preference. Am I the arsehole for telling stepmother's secret to her parents? on a throwaway and mobile, so all of the disclaimers. My female 15 mum passed away in October 2019 after a long battle with lung cancer. I was literally close to her and I miss her all the time. In January 2020, my dad brought home his new girlfriend to meet us, and she moved in with us when our state went into lockdown in March. They got married in November. I hate her. I know it's cliche, but for the past year I felt like my dad shoved aside my and my siblings' grief so that he could have fun with his new wife. She's not evil or anything. I think she doesn't know what to do with us, so she mostly ignores us. A few months ago, I overheard her talking on the phone with a friend, and basically it turns out that she met and started dating my dad before my mum died. I have no idea if my mum knew or not, but to me it feels incredibly disrespectful. Stepmom's parents came to our house for Christmas, and while they were mostly nice people, they kept telling their daughter how proud they were of her for stepping up and being a mother to these children. I got so mad because she clearly was trying to make it seem like we have a better relationship than what actually exists. So I told her parents that she wasn't much of a stepmother, and that dating my dad before my mum had even died wasn't something a good person would do. The fallout hasn't been pretty, and even though it felt righteous in the moment, I've been thinking I went too far. Am I the arsehole for tattling on my stepmother? Edit. Wow, thank you for all your responses. I saw a few people asking for more info, so I thought I'd add it here. After I found out they'd been dating since before my mum died, I told my siblings. We tried to talk to our dad about it. He told us that his romantic life was his business and has shut it down any time one of us has tried to talk about it. So basically, I don't know if my mum knew or approved of them dating before she died. As for how things are now, it's got pretty tense. Neither my dad nor stepmom has talked to me since Christmas Day, unless I say something first. Her parents were really upset. I don't know everything she told them, but they were upset enough to cut their visit short. Instead of leaving on the 29th, they left on lunch on the 25th. I am really grateful to everyone who shared a personal story about losing a parent. A lot of time I don't really know how things are supposed to happen now without her. Reading about how you've dealt with losing your parents made me feel kind of more steady, so thank you. When I was looking at those dates, I thought, damn, that dad has moved on fast, so it would make sense that, he did meet her before, but we don't know that 100%, I guess. And you was just telling the truth in this situation. Sure, it might have been like a tiny bit petty, but I enjoy petty myself. And you just told the truth, and I think the way they're treating you right now, ignoring you after you said this, is absolutely despicable behaviour after you're still grieving yourself. And I know I say everyone deals with grief in different ways, maybe this relationship was founded on grief, but at the same time treating your daughter that way, your siblings that way too, and ignoring them because he's basically moved on and he's in a grump with you because you told the truth is absolutely disgusting in my opinion. He needs to step up and be a father. Shame on that guy, man. But Cheeks39 says, not the arsehole, perhaps it was a bit petty, but honestly I would have probably do the same, lol. As someone who grew up with step parents, I always hated the whole step up and become the parent thing. Just feels disrespectful. Anyways, not the arsehole because you just revealed the truth, and what happens next is the result of stepmom's actions. Good luck, OP. And Bertie Frog says, not the arsehole, your dad should have handled his relationships with his wife and his kids much better. This likely wouldn't have happened if he acted like an actual adult. I'm so sorry about your mum. And the Incredible Ape says, not the arsehole, she did what she did. You only said what she did. If she can't live with the consequences, maybe she and your dad shouldn't have done it. And Fox Sabina says, fuck that, I'd have done the same thing, and I'm more than 20 years older than you. He's probably forgotten about his kid's grief while he's enjoying the thrill of his new relationship. Not saying he's not grieving in his own way, he'd probably be in heaven preparing for his loss before it came, but he's being very selfish. He might even think that remarrying is good for you all as a whole, on some level, but clearly that ain't the case. 3 months to be trotting out a new partner feels incredibly raw, and I feel so sorry you had to go through that, and to be remarried a year later is just oof. It almost reads like a big age gap between them. I don't think you tattled, you told the truth, and yeah, disrespectful to your mum is the word. Your dad and your stepmum need to realise that you seriously still grieving here, and that takes more than a year to come to terms with. And you can't be expected to have a new woman just slot neatly into her place. Now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. Do you think OP was totally right to say what they did? Do you think it was petty, or do you think they're wrong for doing so? Let us know in the comments below. And our next story comes from Elise. Am I the arsehole for throwing away all my sister-in-law's wedding invitations? So I, 18 female, run a small business where I do calligraphy. I make Redbubble stickers and do wedding invitations. It's not a large source of income for me, but it's nice to have a few more dollars coming in. I do hope to expand it one day because I put a lot of work into my designs and spent a lot of money on supplies. My 25 male brother got married to his 26 female girlfriend before the world went to hell, but there is an incident that she is still angry with me and refused to speak to me. For her wedding, she asked me if I would do the invitations. I was fine with doing them as a wedding gift until I realised she was having a 200+ person wedding and wanted handwritten menus, invitations and name cards as well as table cards with facts about her and her fiance. Of course she picked the most expensive stationery and the most elaborate designs that she could. I told her straightforward that I would not be able to finance this, me being a broke 17-year-old saving up for college, and that I could do if I were paid, in which I would just give her a regular wedding gift. I told her I would heavily discount the price where she would only be paying for supplies. She told me we would work out the details, to which I assumed she meant the price/budget for supplies. Now I finished all the invitations, took me a significant chunk of time, but they are ready to go. I asked my sister-in-law to reimburse me for the cost, and she flips her shit and refuses to pay me, saying that I'm taking advantage of her and that I should be nice to her since the rest of the wedding was extremely expensive and I was doing this to purposely exclude her from her new family. Here's where I might be the arsehole. At this point, I had spent a lot of money and time on them and I realised there was no way she was going to pay for the menu/table cards, so I threw away all the invitations that I made. It hurt to see my work go down the drain, but I did use the designs I created for them as examples on my Etsy site. By this time, it was too late to hire someone to make new invitations to sister-in-law. Basically had to send emails instead of invitations. She managed to get printed menus for cheap though. Sister-in-law still won't speak with me. Mum is on my side and brother is pretty neutral. He just wants to apologise to keep the peace. Am I the arsehole? So some have asked why I couldn't just give that to her as a gift instead of buying a separate one when I realised I wouldn't be paid. The reason is that the stationery plus new pens costed way more than I would usually shell out for a wedding gift. I was going to buy a good coffee machine, $80, as that was the only thing I could really afford on my budget. The stationery and supplies would have costed hundreds of dollars on my end if I'd gone through with making all things without reimbursement. This would have wiped out virtually all my profits for this year, but luckily I only ended up doing the invitations, so I wasted a lot less money than I would have if I'd gone through with the project. So we have a grown adult in this situation taking advantage of a 17-year-old's skills and then trying to manipulate them after. Oh god, man. Humans sometimes, they really get to me. And absolutely not the arsehole in this situation, but I do question if it could have been played a bit better, if there was a way to still recoup some of them costs by, you know, basically holding those invitations hostage, because at some point she's going to realize that, you know, that is her best option, so she will need to pay for them, and just kept them until that moment. And it does question as well, why isn't your brother helping you out? Why isn't your brother backing you up and making her pay, or paying himself, you know? Ugh, insane. But not the arsehole in this situation. But Stella says, not the arsehole, but in future, get a contract and a deposit to at least cover supplies before doing all that work. And Momala says, not the arsehole, and your brother should have paid you. Family does not mean you have permission to take advantage. Always get at least 50% up front for your work, even if it's family. And St. Elvis says, not the arsehole, don't think destroying the invites as petty. Good people don't reward bad behaviour. And Type 1 Error says, wow, she used the trust that family members have with one another to get you to put time and money into a project when she actually had no intention of paying for it. She tried to rob a 17-year-old high school student, the sister of the future husband no less. But not only is she the arsehole, so is your brother. There were two people getting married. If she refused to pay, your brother should have. They both owe you an apology. Not the arsehole. And the real Scrotus says, not the arsehole, but I think you cut off your nose to spite your face here. You should have stood your ground on being reimbursed for materials, but kept the invitations so you made your sister-in-law realise there was no one else who could do them in time and you might have gotten your money. Now, I turn this one to you guys. What do you guys think of this situation? Do you think OP was petty for throwing them away, or do you think there was another way around it? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And our next story comes from New Year Drama. Am I the arsehole for calling the cops on my neighbour's sons who ruined my family's night? Okay, so now that I'm not really sure 2020 is going to be a good year after what happened. I'm a widow with 2 girls, 16 and 14. I moved to my house 2 years ago. I live in a neighbourhood where houses have identical design, situated side by side and joined by same walls. My next door neighbour has 2 teenage sons, who are loud and mean in general. I keep my distance, I try to be civil and respectful with them, but still limit our interactions. My sister and her daughter decided to end New Year's Eve with us. We were preparing meals and were about to sit at the table to eat. That's when I noticed noise coming from our backyard. I went to check and found my neighbour's son setting up fireworks. They brought some friends. Their parents weren't home and it looks like they were having a gathering. I asked them to leave my backyard and they did after arguing. Then we were sitting eating, we nearly jumped off our chairs when we heard a loud noise coming from the backyard. Turns out they were on my backyard. For your information, we have a fence to separate our yard from theirs, and started setting off fireworks and recording with their phones. I was so mad my girls were terrified. I told them to get off my property. One of the neighbour's sons was talking back being disrespectful. I told them I'd call the cops and I did. We waited until my daughter saw someone peeking through our window. I found that the officer was in my backyard and peeking through the window for 3 to 4 minutes and he didn't knock or anything. He looked like the respect my authority type of guy. I argued with him about doing that and he took no action after I told him the kids were setting off fireworks in the backyard. The kids hid inside their house and he didn't even talk to them or anything. I demanded to get another officer to come and after arguing for 15 minutes, another officer came. He had the kids come out of the house and after 40 minutes of talking outside, they took them to the police station. The neighbours arrived later and the kids' mum came over and lashed out at me, calling me names for calling the cops and letting her kids spend New Year's in the cell. She kept yelling, making it seem my fault. I heard them calling me an old hag and said that I ruined their night. Our night was ruined, we didn't even eat. New Year started with a scene and a huge argument with the neighbours. So let's face it, they were just trespassing on your property and you reported it. Well, you even gave them a chance. You went out there and said leave our property and they still continued. So absolutely not the arsehole. You can't be the arsehole in this case. And what was that first cop doing? Why was he just playing it completely down? I know they're probably very busy people, but this is, I'd say it's quite serious. Someone setting off fireworks in your back garden, you know, and it don't sound like they're the most responsible people either. And putting myself in your shoes and someone was in my back garden just setting off fireworks, I think I'd be bloody a bit scared too and a bit worried and, you know, confronting the situation. So not the arsehole. However, Outrageous Future 4 says not the arsehole. If I understand this correctly, they trespassed on your property and you didn't call the cops. You asked them to leave, they came back a second time and would have come back a third if you hadn't called the cops. They chose to escalate the situation after fair warning. And Scaly Lion says not the arsehole, they were trespassing and you gave them a chance to leave twice and they refused. They were probably using your yard instead of their own because their mum said they weren't allowed to do it and they thought leaving the mess in your yard would keep them from getting caught. They sound like entitled pricks, so hopefully this will teach them a lesson instead of making things worse in the future. Even Speech says not the arsehole, but I'd be careful because these kids seem the type to pull nasty pranks on you in the future. Absolutely, and that was sort of what I was thinking as well, that they might try something a bit dodgy in the future. And Algie says, not the arsehole, they didn't need to be in your yard, they should have used their own yard. You didn't put them in jail for the night, their own actions did. Aquasaurus Rex says, not the arsehole, the parents left their minor children alone with explosives. They trespassed and I would bet whatever they were shooting off was not legal. And Mandian says, not the arsehole, they were trespassing, you asked them once to leave and they didn't. There are consequences to actions and this was their consequence. Now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What would you do in this situation? Was OP right to call the cops on them and escalate the situation? Or do you think it could have been dealt with in a different way? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Now, before I go into anything else, I just want to say I am looking at those Christmas pictures. There's a lot of them to go through and I'm saving them and I will be announcing the winner of that Christmas competition very soon. Oh, some of them are just so good. So good. So thank you for everyone who submitted and, you know, I haven't forgotten about it, just to let you know. Oh, and I said that I would tell you guys about what happened yesterday with the neighbour peeking over the fence and stuff. It was so funny. So I was sat here, I'm in like an L-shaped room that looks out onto my back garden and it's all windows along sort of one side of the room that looks out onto the garden. So you can literally see me sat here recording if you wanted to. So here I am just about to start yesterday's video's recording and I look across and I can see the top of a head looking over the fence and suddenly the fence panel drops and the neighbour's just staring at me like, hi. And I'm like, hello. Just as I was talking, doing the recording at the same time. So, we're in an area where everyone's close by, but it's not really neighborly. We say hello to each other and all that kind of thing, but that's about it. So I sort of look, nod, and pretend to carry on recording. I wasn't really recording, I was just too embarrassed to carry on at that point, so I just pushed the mic down. And then I sort of got up and went and pretended to make a coffee, although I had a coffee on my desk. I don't know why I was doing this. This is just my stupid mind at play here, right? So my neighbour is still dicking about with his fence panel, and I'm stood there pretending to make coffee in the kitchen. He can still clearly see me because that room attaches to the other room as well. So you can see me in the kitchen pretending to make coffee. And I'm actually boiling the kettle at this point. I'm thinking, still, what am I doing? I put another spoonful of coffee in the cup, and I've got the milk out, and I'm not going to do it. What am I doing? And so I'm stood in the kitchen hiding now. I'm hiding out of sight at this point. I'm behind the washing machine and that sort of stuff, and I'm peeking round to see if he's finished, thinking, can I go and shut the blinds in the back room so he can't see me recording? But no, I don't do it. I'm too scared. My mind's going crazy at this point. My mind's saying, oh, will he think it's rude if I just shut the blinds on him? Will he think that I'm just trying to shut him away? Or does he think I should be out there helping him fix this fence panel? It's not my fence panel, that's his boundary. So my mind's still going crazy. I'm going up the stairs and I'm peeking out that window. I'm coming back downstairs, I'm peeking out this window. Can I still shut the blinds? Can I get away with it? No, I can't. 20 minutes has passed at this point. My coffee's gone cold on my computer table and I'm going shit crazy. The fence panel in the back garden's completely removed at this point, and they're doing something else in their back garden, but they're not in this open gap. So I could go and shut the blinds, but I don't. What I do is I crawl across my floor into my recording room, get my die cut printer and put it on the wall in between the recording room and the main room so they can only just see the top of my head and I can start doing some recording. But at the same time, I'm peeking over the printer thinking I can go and shut those blinds and cover my view completely. But I don't. I sit here for longer just staring. Eventually, I man up, get some balls and go and shut the blinds. So I do that and then I'm good. Everything's good and I start recording my video and I completed my video and the doorbell rings. Oh God, who's that? It could be the neighbor. They could be explaining. They could think I'm rude for shutting the blinds on them. What if that's the case? Anyway, I have to man up. I go and open the door and it is the neighbor. Oh, and I miss a crucial part out. When I was upstairs peeking around the door, they caught me peeping. Anyway, back to the door. The neighbour's at the door and he's talking to me and he says, oh yeah, we've just replacing the fence panel because the bottom of it was rotted out. I was like, oh, okay. And I finally man up and I said, look, I'm sorry I shut the blinds. It was because I do YouTube stuff. And he said, oh, okay. And I don't know whether he would believe me or not, but I still carried on down that path. It was truth. It was the truth. I'm too embarrassed to record in front of someone. I don't even tell my whole family about YouTube yet. Which leads on to a conversation of him telling me his wife is a web designer and all this kind of thing. Then I offer to contribute towards the fence panel and all this kind of thing. And he's cool with it. But last time, because the fence broke last year as well, I bought him a load of beer. And he said, don't buy me any beer, I'm on a diet and all this. So it's all good in the end. He probably still thinks I'm an ignorant ass for shutting the blinds. But hey, we're free now. The fence panel is still down this morning. And I've still got the blinds shut just in case to avoid that situation again. But yes, that was yesterday's story. Why is my life like this? Why am I like this? Anyway, guys, thank you for being here today. If you want to support the channel, you can through YouTube membership by clicking that join button down below or heading on over to Patreon where you can join us there too. God, I am crazy, and I see you guys. Much love to you. Bye.